Hey, what is good, guys? My name is D Free, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have another Dragon Ball Super / Dragon Ball just in general discussion video. Matter of fact, let's just encompass anything that you can ever have a genuine appreciation for and be able to criticize. So let's look at it from that perspective. But today I have, once again, the one and only Real to Real on the channel with me. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on the channel again.
No problem. So, as I was saying, guys, we're going to be talking about the difference between hating on something and criticizing something. I think that, let's just talk about Dragon Ball here for a moment because a lot of our fan base is Dragon Ball fans. I think that a lot of people kind of get it misconstrued. They think about it as, somebody saying, oh, Super didn't do this right, so this person is hating on the show. Why don't you just turn off your brain when you watch the show? Why don't you stop thinking about this and that and this plot hole and this and that and just enjoy the show? I think a lot of people don't really understand how that really works. It's a different thing to say, hey, Super shit, excuse my language, or to say, hey, Super has so much potential. It's really bothersome to see them not capitalize on that potential. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of people don't really understand that, Mark. You want to go ahead and jump in here, bro?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of when it comes to like criticism versus hatred of a certain show, you have to look at it a very dynamic way where basically the one thing I hate about when people say, oh, you hate Super or you're just hating on it, you gotta turn off your brain, stop being analytical with certain things like Dragon Ball Super, it's really obnoxious because Dragon Ball Super is not immune to any criticism in terms of storytelling. One thing I was telling you about this before we actually started recording was, look, anime for me, at least, is very personal because anime for me was when I was young, and I'm sure a lot of other people, one of the reasons that it stuck out was not because of the violence, not because of the blood or anything, because it was a genuine serialized story instead of an episodic story that was basically the bedrock of any television storytelling wise in the 90s and the 80s and all the times when we actually grew up. We didn't have shows like we did today. We had shows that actually in anime and Toonami actually told genuine stories. Didn't matter if it was 100 episodes, 200 episodes, 300 episodes into one story. It was a genuine story that was being told with layers and stuff like one thing, storylines and everything carrying over to the other. We had that stuff and Super just doesn't have that. And when we sit there and we overanalyze that stuff, yes, this is because we're actually older people now, and we've actually learned to appreciate story and to appreciate the dynamic of actually having how to tell a story, the way that you tell story from beginning to end and actually have it make sense, where you don't actually end up stepping on yourself from plot hole to plot hole to plot hole. Something like Super is actually doing. Super has a very dynamic story that is told from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z. Now, a lot of people, you don't really count Dragon Ball GT in that, but definitely you count Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and it's completely either forgetting about it or shitting on all this stuff, and it's just so obnoxious to me. And when we go up here and we analyze and we criticize all this stuff, I don't understand the hate where you don't overanalyze, don't criticize in that way. Super's not trying to compare to other shows like One Piece or My Hero Academia or Hunter or anything like that. Yes, it is. It is a story. It doesn't matter if they're not in the same shonen manga series or even just general storytelling method, whether it's comedy versus action versus drama versus anything else. It is trying to tell a story, and if it's trying to tell any story, if any story is put out there for the public to see, it is something that we need to criticize because we're fans. We're fans of the show. We put money, we spend money and all this stuff to actually support this series that we love. We deserve to criticize it.
Definitely. No, I completely agree with you. I think that it's also important to note that, a lot of people are, younger audience, like you just mentioned. I know that, from my own perspective, like being younger, like, 14, 15 years old, I didn't look at it that way. It's a bit different as you grow up, 14, 15, 16 years old. You're just trying to enjoy the show. And I think that that's something that you can still do, but it's important to be able to, break it down and analyze it a certain way to where you're like, hey, hold on. They said this one episode, but they're completely contradicting themselves by saying this now. I think that a lot of people, it kind of gets lost on them that, these shows are legitimately trying to tell stories. You don't have to compare an anime to another anime, I'm gonna tell you something real. You can actually compare the storytelling mechanics in an anime to a real live show and say, hey, this show knows how to tell a story, because at the end of the day, they're both stories written by a person. It doesn't matter if it's live action or if it's an anime. It's just the reality is they're trying to accomplish something, and you have the right to criticize it as a fan of the show, whether you support it or not. Just being a fan of it, you have the right to dissect it and criticize it. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, and it's completely ignorant to say that. It's completely ignorant to say that for you to enjoy a show like Super, you need to turn off the analytical side of your brain and just say, okay, I'm just going to watch it and accept the fact that it has whole A and whole B and whole C and all the way throughout the alphabet, and just kind of deal with it. That's not how the story was intended for you. The author of the show did not want that to happen. It's not how it's intended, but that's what you're choosing to do because you have no other way to cope with these blatant obvious holes that are in the story. And that's just with Super exclusively. I think that a lot of people just kind of get lost in all that, Mark.
No, I completely agree. And that's one of the biggest problems of this entire series thus far, is that people just want to love this show because we're actually getting more Dragon Ball after 2 decades of not having new Dragon Ball content to actually digest. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think one of the things we actually need to make very clear is that as fans of the show, people who, whether we analyze it or not, like we obviously do, we both of us have these channels. We basically look at this stuff in a very, very analytical way. There's one thing to actually look at these two, like this actual perspective of this show and think, look, we love this show. We hope, and we desire for the best of this show, but we're just not getting it. So we do get on here almost every single week, it feels like these days, actually going on and criticizing this show episode for episode. And it's not that these episodes are actually bad. They're great. For the last 10, 12, 13, 14 episodes of this show has been nothing but amazing. And the problem with that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I'm having fun watching one episode or another if the overall concept doesn't make sense and they just keep making logical leaps and bounds in order to make anything either plausible or make sense or anything. And I find a problem with that, then yes, I'm going to be overly critical of the show. And at the end of the day, I think, like you said, like it's just going to be nothing but kind of just a flash in the pan type of series.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like you said, they kind of look at it as, once again, this is Dragon Ball. We haven't had Dragon Ball for so long. And I think a lot of people, exclusively in the community, a lot of these guys that a lot of people listen to, people that just, make videos just in general. I'm not talking about, big YouTubers, but just everybody is so afraid to be critical of this show. And that's kind of like wildfire, where everybody's like, oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. This is amazing. And then you've got 1, 2, 3 people saying, hey, no, it's not. No, they're doing this wrong. They're doing that wrong. And it's like you're an outlier in that situation from like our perspective. And that's where, people get it misconstrued. Once again, they're like, hey, why are you hating? Why are you hating? Everybody says it's great, but why are you hating on it? But the reality is that, we all want the show to succeed. I think, we all were initially really freaking hyped about this show. It was it was trending all over the place. It was something that everybody was in love with, the concept, the idea, everything, up until it started, up until we found out all the news about it. It was something that everybody was really hyped about, but they completely, they missed the opportunity to kind of explain a lot of this stuff. So, for me, I'm not going to say that I dislike the series, but I'm not going to say I love it. I'm also definitely not going to ever be on record saying that the show is a great series, because honestly, it's not. I'm not going to say that, any other media any other form of like Dragon Ball didn't have any other issues, because they did. But the reality is, like you said, back in the 90s and whatnot, and early 2000s, where we had animes as well, they actually did an attempt to try to explain a story to you. But nowadays, it's to the point where, these companies and whatnot have really realized that, we can spend all this time trying to tell this crazy, amazing story and make this an amazing show. But guess what? Fighting gets ratings. So we can just spend time being lazy and just show them some amazing, cool looking stuff, and they're going to soak this shit up. They're going to enjoy it for what it is. And I think that's a problem with it, is because they kind of established that mantra to where you have to do that with a show like Super exclusively.
Oh yeah, I completely agree, and that's just the general problem with the series as a whole. I mean, we have this amazing story, like I said, from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z that we've actually watched, and now we're at Super. And the problem with that is, I definitely think that once I go back and watch Super as a whole, in terms of watching Dragon Ball and then watching Dragon Ball Z in its entirety and then going in to watch Super, I'm going to actually love this show. I mean, like I said, most of the episodes for the series have not been bad. Like, they've been actually really fun to watch in the moment, but once you start actually analyzing it and thinking about, okay, where are we from episode 1 to where are we from episode 40, and realize that we're basically nowhere with no real outline for anything to happen in the future that's even remotely exciting. I don't care what anyone says about any upcoming tournaments or anything like that. It just feels like a blatant ripoff of either fan fiction or something like that with multiverse. Why are we even here? Like, what are we here to watch if not for just like blatant propaganda, if not blatant marketing, strategic storytelling that we're actually seeing, where Toriyama's just shitting out ideas left and right and character designs and all that other stuff. It's not what I paid to see. It's not what I want to see. It's not what I want from Dragon Ball. I want Dragon Ball to be dark. I want Dragon Ball to be gritty. I want Dragon Ball to be lighthearted for like what we've seen. But for the most part, I grew up with Dragon Ball Z. I can't help that. It's just, I want it to actually have some stakes to it. I want there to be some emotion, some genuine death scenes, some stuff where maybe certain things like the Dragon Balls or certain things is just doesn't really matter as so much as this person's really strong, like Frieza, Cell, Majin Buu, or what have you. And have there be meaning to what we're actually seeing, have there be stakes, and that's not what's happening in Super. That's what's never going to happen in Super. I've said it before, I'll say it a million times before. This whole series is just completely Toriyama taking a victory lap for having basically the best career in manga authorship history, and it's just, I don't think it's worthy of what we actually want as a fandom.
No, I completely agree once again, Mark, with all your sentiments. Guys, I just want to let you guys know that once again, whenever you hear somebody, talking about the show, don't be so sensitive about it. I mean, that's the main thing in my perspective is like a lot of guys, I know you have nostalgia for the series. I know a lot of people, kind of look at it through like this lens where it can do no wrong. Toriyama can do no wrong. Goku can do no wrong with his crazy power-ups. Like nothing is wrong with the show. But that's the thing is, as, people that are here to give you content, it's our job to kind of dissect it, and anybody else that's willing to actually speak critically on it, I think that's an asset in the community, because once again, not a lot of people are really willing, whether it's, based on like appearance and how they look to their subscribers and stuff like that, and how they want to appear a certain way and not say anything negative. That's fine. I'm cool with that, but it's like, I think that you bring an extra element to the table when you can actually talk about that. So that's just pretty much where we're at, guys. Just let us know down below in the comments how you feel about, speaking critically about a show in general. Once again, it doesn't have to be Dragon Ball, but I wanted to kind of make this Dragon Ball centric because our fan bases, our audiences for our content is mainly Dragon Ball and stuff like that. But once again, it can be about anything, anime, real life, anything that you can actually criticize. I just want to know how you guys feel about that as well. But thank you, Mark, for joining me on today's video. Once again, it has always been a pleasure, bro.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No worries, man. So hope you guys go ahead and check out Mark's channel. It will be linked in the description for you. Go ahead and check him out. Amazing guy, amazing content creator. He's always got some just crazy, fantastic theories on Dragon Ball and all this other stuff over there that I just can't wrap my head around. So we'll see you guys next time, though. Peace out.
Bye.